I quietly left after discovering my wife's affair after 3.5 years of marriage. A year later, my ghosted ex-wife tracked me down. They say most people don't notice the moment things start to break. But looking back, I remember the moment exactly. It wasn't loud argument or confession. It was the quietness that unnerved me. Silence where there used to be laughter, a distant glance where there used to be warmth. Claire and I had been married for 3 years. Ours wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was something that grew from years of knowing each other. We met in college, started dating after graduation, and tied the knot in our late 20s. We thought we were ahead of the curve. Responsible, balanced, secure. And we were at first. Our home in the suburbs was small but cozy. 2-bedroom townhome with light gray walls. Claire insisted on painting herself. Thrifted bookshelf overflowing with fiction she never finished. And kitchen island where we shared both takeout and confessions. It wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. We had routines that felt sacred. Morning coffee on the balcony, her in my hoodie hair messy and I sleepy. Friday night sushi on the couch, always from this hole-in-the-wall place. Sundays were hers for yoga and mine for tinkering with my computer builds. We met back at noon for brunch at home. She was full of life. Quirky, smart, a little chaotic, in a way that made you love her more. She'd dance in the kitchen with socks on and almost slip every time. She talked to her succulents like they were coworkers and made up names for each. I remember thinking one night as I watched her eat cereal out of mixing bowl, how did I get so lucky? But comfort is deceptive. It dulls her sense of danger. It started with the phone. Claire used to leave it everywhere, on the couch, in the bathroom, even in the fridge once, but now it never left her side. If it buzzed, she'd casually flip it face down. I once caught her deleting messages from Thread, her face oddly calm. She told me it was just old client stuff. And came the shifts in mood. Little things she'd smile, but her eyes didn't. Her hugs became shorter, distracted. Kisses landed on my cheek like they were being checked off lists. She started dressing up more makeup, perfume she hadn't worn in years. I asked her where she was going once, and she blinked, then gave vague answer about freelance meeting. Another time she told me she was going to gallery opening alone. She never mentioned it again. I didn't confront her. Not right away. At first, I doubted myself. Maybe she was just finding herself again. Maybe she needed space. We'd been married for years. It was normal to drift, but the gut feeling never left. It grew heavier, sharper every time I looked at her and realized she wasn't really with me anymore. Her body was there, sleeping in our bed, eating at our table, but her presence had vanished. It felt like living with ghosts wearing her skin. One night, I brought up how distant she'd been. We were eating dinner. I'd cooked creamy mushroom pasta she used to love, but she barely touched it. Her fork moved the food around, eating, just stirring. I cleared my throat. Claire, are we okay? She glanced up, surprised. What do you mean? If you've been distant, quiet, we barely talk. We haven't connected in weeks. So she let out a sigh, leaned back, rubbed her temples. I'm just tired. Work's been intense, and honestly, I feel a little smothered sometimes. Smothered. That word hit me like punch to the chest. I'm not trying to crowd you, I said, trying to stay calm. I know, she replied. I just need room to breathe, some time for myself. I nodded slowly. Inside, something cracked. From that night on, I stopped pressing, but I started noticing everything. She'd come home late with no explanation. Her clothes would smell like different cologne. Her excuses, client dinners, late night. Design crunches felt more rehearsed each time. And always, the phone never left her grip. I began to study her the way a scientist studies a puzzle, not out of anger, out of heartbreak. One evening, I came home early. My boss had canceled late meeting. Claire didn't hear me enter. I stood quietly in the hallway, coat still on, as I listened to her giggling softly in the living room. I peeked around the corner. She was on the couch, phone to her ear, legs curled up beneath her, wearing silky black robe I hadn't seen before. Stop, you're terrible, she said, laughing. Pause. Soon, I promise. I just need to figure out the right time. Another pause. She nodded, then suddenly stiffened. Like she felt my presence, she turned. Our eyes met. Her smile vanished. You're home early. I didn't ask who she was talking to. I didn't say anything. Just client, she said. They're launching new site and the design's mess. I just nodded. She stared at me, waiting for reaction. When I gave her none, she stood, kissed my cheek, and said, I'm going to bed early tonight. Long day. She left her half-finished wine glass on the table. I walked over, picked it up. The scent that rose wasn't hers. It was someone else's. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed while she lay asleep with her back to me, wondering how long she'd been gone. She was right there beside me. She wasn't mine anymore. It was a Friday night when I found the truth I had been both dreading and preparing for. I hadn't gone looking for it, but maybe deep down I had been waiting for it to surface, needing something solid to break the denial I'd been clinging to. Claire was already asleep on the couch, curled up under knitted blanket, her breathing soft and slow. An open bottle of wine stood on the coffee table. Her phone rested loosely in her hand, screen dark, unlocked. It buzzed. That's all it took. One buzz. I stared at it, pulse suddenly hammering in my ears. I told myself not to look. Told myself that crossing that line would make me just as guilty of violating trust. But trust was already dead. With trembling hand, I gently slid the phone out from under her palm. She didn't stir. I tapped the screen. No passcode. She must have unlocked it before she dozed off. The messages were right there. Instagram DMS, dozens of them. The most recent was from someone saved under the name Corey. Oxcalab. I opened the thread and my heart stopped. Corey, still thinking about last weekend. You taste like honey and sin. Claire, you're bad. Kissing heart. Corey, tell me again, when are you going to tell your husband? Claire, soon. It's complicated. Corey, you always say that. Claire, he's just not like you. I scrolled up. The thread went back months. Messages, photos. Photos. Her in the same robe she wore for me once. Hotel selfies, dinner plates lit by candlelight, their inside jokes, their flirty banter, the way she told him things she never said to me. Even in our best days, each message felt like nail hammered into my chest. I stared at her sleeping on the couch, her mouth slightly open, blissfully unaware. And I realized something. I didn't feel rage, not yet. What I felt was something colder, emptier. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. All those nights I cooked her favorite meals, all the little gestures I thought still mattered, all the silence I interpreted as fatigue. She was never tired. She was just elsewhere, with someone else. I backed away, quietly placing the phone on the coffee table like it was poison. I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling 1,000 memories crush me one by one. The time I proposed to her under the old oak tree in her parents' backyard, the night she got sick and I stayed up making her soup and cooling her fever, the first time we moved into our home and danced on the hardwood floor to no music. All of it rewritten in one night. When the sun rose, I got up with clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. I made plan. Over the next few weeks, I moved in silence. I started transferring money out of our joint account into one she didn't know about. I canceled shared streaming services and auto renewals. I called my firm and requested transfer to our satellite office 2 cities away, citing personal reasons. I found furnished 1-bedroom apartment, a month-to-month lease, and no ties. I even sold my car and bought used one with cash, every item of mine. Closed documents, sentimental keepsakes. I slowly packed and stored in boxes at work. I didn't want her to notice missing items too soon. At night, I acted normal, smiled when she made small talk, kissed her forehead when she said goodnight, pretended I didn't know she was still slipping out late, and lying through her teeth. I wasn't playing game. I was staging quiet escape. And then one morning, the opportunity came. She had gone to spend the weekend with her cousin in another city. I waited for her to leave, watched her drive away from the upstairs window. Then I moved. I carried every last box to my new car, left the house key on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker. I stood in the doorway one last time, taking it all in. The framed wedding photo on the wall of the couch where we once cuddled on lazy afternoons, the hallway we painted together while covered in flecks of blue. Then I walked out. No note, no confrontation, no drama, just silence. I didn't block her right away. I wanted to see her reaction. Hours passed. And day. On Sunday night, I received the first call. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Where are you? Did something happen? Please call me. I'm scared. Is this about work? What's going on? Call me now. But then finally, if this is about the messages, I can explain. And just like that, I blocked her on everything. Social media, phone, email, friends of hers, mutuals gone. I vanished just as quietly as I discovered the truth. I started over, and for the first time in months, I could breathe again. Freedom didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like silence. The morning after I left, I woke up in strange bed in strange apartment and realized I hadn't heard Claire's voice. I hadn't smelled her perfume in the air. There was no sound of her making coffee, no soft of her morning playlists, no half-open closet full of her clothes. Just quiet. I sat up slowly, blinking in the morning light streaming through cheap blinds. It was simple studio. Bare walls, mattress on the floor, folding table that doubled as desk and dinner surface. But it was mine. The air felt cleaner. My chest felt lighter, even if my heart still hurt. The first few weeks passed in blur. I buried myself in work, taking extra shifts, volunteering for weekend deployments, training new hires, anything to keep my mind busy. My transfer to the new office had been approved almost immediately, and my boss hadn't asked many questions. In tech, people tend to respect emotional privacy. No one knew me in this new city, no mutual friends, no family nearby, no history. That's exactly what I wanted. For the first time in years, I had no one to answer to, but freedom is a double-edged sword. Some nights it cut deep. I'd come home to an apartment, make instant ramen, and scroll through streaming services, never watching anything. I slept in tangle of half-used blankets, often waking up in the middle of the night, reaching for someone who wasn't there anymore. My hands would land on empty space and I'd lie back staring at the ceiling until dawn. I was free. But I was grieving not for Claire, but for the version of myself who believed in her. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my parents, not my coworkers, not even my old college friend James, who kept texting me. Bro, you good? Oh, I left him en route. I wasn't ready to talk about it. Putting it into words would make it real. I had built wall, high, thick, and soundproof. Claire tried to scale it. In the first month, she messaged from every platform I hadn't blocked. He emailed from burner accounts. She sent voice notes I refused to open. One time, I got message from an unfamiliar number, her voice trembling on the recording. Please, just tell me if you're alive. That was the last time I listened to anything from her. Eventually, the noise stopped. She must have realized, serious, that I was really gone. Few mutual friends reached out too. Cautiously, hey man, Claire's been trying to find you. Said something happened. Are you okay? I replied with the same answer each time. I'm fine. I'm just starting over. They never asked again. I changed my number 2 months later. I deleted my social accounts, switched to new email addresses. I was off the grid, not in paranoid way, just intentionally invisible. And in that invisibility, I found something close to peace. I started picking up hobbies again. Reading books I never had time for, sketching ideas for side business I'd long forgotten. I even started hitting the gym, not for revenge or looks, but because it felt good to build something, even if it was just muscle. Women flirted with me. Some of them were kind, interesting, pretty, but I kept them all at arm's length. I wasn't ready, or maybe I was afraid, because even when I smiled back, I always heard voice in my head whisper, she lied. She said she loved you, and she lied. I was free. But I was grieving not for Claire, but for the version of myself who believed in her. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my parents, not my coworkers, not even my old college friend James, who kept texting me. Bro, you good? Oh, I left him en route. I wasn't ready to talk about it. Putting it into words would make it real. I had built wall, high, thick, and soundproof. Claire tried to scale it. In the first month, she messaged from every platform I hadn't blocked. He emailed from burner accounts. She sent voice notes I refused to open. One time, I got message from an unfamiliar number, her voice trembling on the recording. Please, just tell me if you're alive. That was the last time I listened to anything from her. Eventually, the noise stopped. She must have realized, serious, that I was really gone. Few mutual friends reached out too. Cautiously, hey man, Claire's been trying to find you. Said something happened. Are you okay? I replied with the same answer each time. I'm fine. I'm just starting over. They never asked again. I changed my number 2 months later. I deleted my social accounts, switched to new email addresses. I was off the grid, not in paranoid way, just intentionally invisible. And in that invisibility, I found something close to peace. I started picking up hobbies again. Reading books I never had time for, sketching ideas for side business I'd long forgotten. I even started hitting the gym, not for revenge or looks, but because it felt good to build something, even if it was just muscle. Women flirted with me. Some of them were kind, interesting, pretty, but I kept them all at arm's length. I wasn't ready, or maybe I was afraid, because even when I smiled back, I always heard voice in my head whisper, she lied. She said she loved you, and she lied. It was a quiet Sunday I had just come back from a long walk through the park. It had become a habit of mine. No music, no distractions, just me and the sound of the wind in the trees. I liked the stillness. It made me feel grounded. Real. I dropped bag of groceries on the kitchen counter and was halfway through unpacking when the knock came. 3 soft, deliberate taps. I froze. No one ever knocked on my door. I had no friends in the building, and deliveries always rang the bell. I walked to the door slowly, heart suddenly hammering with unease. I looked through the people, and there she was, Claire. For a moment, my mind refused to process it. I blinked twice, hoping it was some cruel trick of memory or imagination. But no, there she stood, the same wavy chestnut hair, now tied back. Eyes red, face pale, clutching her purse with both hands like she was bracing herself to collapse. I opened the door slowly, said nothing. She didn't speak either. Not right away. Her eyes flicked over me, taking in the changed haircut, the leaner build, the unfamiliar apartment behind me, and they locked onto mine. Hiya, she said softly. Her voice cracked. You look different. Well, I stood in the doorway silent, waiting. I didn't know if I'd ever find you, she continued. But I had to try. My voice, when it finally came, was calm. Too calm. How did you find me? She swallowed. A friend from your old office. He mentioned you transferred. I tracked your LinkedIn and some tagged photos from mutuals. I pieced it together over months. She laughed nervously. You disappeared like ghost. That was the idea. Claire winced like I'd slapped her. Can I come in? She asked, voice barely above whisper. I hesitated. Everything in me screamed no. But curiosity or closure. I stepped aside. She walked in like she was entering a church. Her eyes darted across the apartment. It was neat, minimalist, clean, no sign of her or the life we once had. That seemed to shake her more than anything. She turned back to me. I deserve what you did, she said, voice trembling. I didn't know you'd actually leave without word, without even letting me explain. There was nothing to explain. I replied, you cheated, repeatedly. You lied to my face, Claire. You let me kiss you after you'd been with someone else. Her breath caught in her throat. I know I was awful. I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know I've changed. I've spent this whole year in therapy. I haven't touched another man since you left. I've been sober. I've been reflecting. I've been hurting. I didn't leave to punish you, I said. I left to save myself. A tear spilled from her eyes then. She took a slow step forward. I still love you, oh, she said. I didn't flinch. Claire, the person I loved, died the night I read those messages, the woman in those texts. That's not the Claire I married. I was confused, she whispered. I was broken. I thought something was missing in me or us, and I went looking for answers in all the wrong places. You didn't look for answers, I said. You ran from the truth. And then you ran from the mess you made. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. I came to ask, is there any chance at all, even the smallest one? I looked at her, and for a brief moment, the old memories flashed again. Her laugh echoing in the kitchen, her hand in mine during winter walks, her sleepy smile under the covers, but they were ghosts now, beautiful, painful ghosts. I stepped closer. My voice was firm, but not cruel. No, oh, she nodded once, then again, as if each nod could stitch together what she already knew, that it was over, not just physically, not just logistically, but spiritually, emotionally, irrevocably. I understand, oh, she whispered. She turned toward the door, but paused with her hand on the knob. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. I thought for a moment. Yes, I said, but not to take you back. To let myself move forward. As she opened the door, sunlight spilling across the floor. I hope you find peace, I said. She gave me a look that I'll never forget. Something between gratitude and devastation. Then she stepped outside. I closed the door behind her, gently, not in anger, not in triumph, but in peace. For the first time in over a year, I felt whole again. I thought seeing Claire again would be the end of the story, but I was wrong. About 2 weeks after that final conversation, I received an envelope in the mail. My name typed on the front. No return address. Inside, legal documents she had filed for divorce. Officially, and with a demand for half of everything I had. Not just what we built together. She wanted a cut of what I had earned since leaving, and my blood ran cold. The apartment, furnished on my own, the savings I scraped together after starting from scratch. The stocks I'd carefully built. She wanted it all tallied and split retroactively. The same woman who had lied, cheated, and slept in another man's bed now claimed she was entitled to what I built after leaving her. It was a low blow. I got lawyer immediately. We combed through everything. My lawyer was sharp, calm, and thorough. Thankfully, I had moved smart. Most of my accounts post-separation were in my name alone, created after I left. I kept documentation of my transfer, receipts, leases, email trails. The paper trail was clean. Still, Claire's legal team tried to argue that there had been no official separation until the divorce was filed, that she had been left in limbo. Thus, assets earned during that period were still shared marital property. We went to court. Day one, she showed up wearing all white like she was there for a funeral. Maybe she was just not mine. She avoided eye contact the entire time. Her attorney spun tragic narrative, how she had been blindsided by my disappearance, left with no closure or financial support. They painted her as abandoned, woman still in love, deserted without warning. My lawyer let them talk, and then calmly dismantled every word he screenshots, dates of transactions, the timeline of my transfer request, the messages she'd sent me acknowledging the affair, the fact that I'd left my own house with nothing but duffel bag, that I'd never once tried to access or claim what was legally mine. Our home, joint assets, furniture, none of it. I had simply walked away. Mr. Haysden abandoned his wife. My lawyer said he escaped betrayal and rebuilt his life from zero. What she's asking for isn't justice. It's delayed punishment for leaving her behind. Though there was silence in the room when he finished. Claire sat frozen. I could see the flicker of realization behind her eyes. This wasn't going the way she planned. After 3 tense sessions, the court ruled we split the marital property up to the day I left. Nothing more. Everything I earned after that was mine, protected. She didn't get the apartment. I didn't get my savings, not dime from my solo investments. She did get some value from our original joint savings portion of what was still tied to our marriage legally. But it was far less than she had demanded. It wasn't about money, though. It was about dignity, about drawing line. After the ruling, we passed each other in the courthouse hallway. I was about to leave when I heard her voice behind me. I never thought you'd fight back, Coach. She said. I turned and looked her in the eyes. She looked tired, not in the way you do after a long day, but in the way a person looks when the lies they lived in finally collapse. I gave you peace, I said quietly. You came for war. That was your mistake. She didn't reply. She just looked down, then walked away. And just like that, the final thread between us snapped. Everything I earned after that was mine, protected. She didn't get the apartment. I didn't get my savings, not dime from my solo investments. She did get some value from our original joint savings portion of what was still tied to our marriage legally, but it was far less than she had demanded. It wasn't about money, though. It was about dignity, about drawing line. After the ruling, we passed each other in the courthouse hallway. I was about to leave when I heard her voice behind me. I never thought you'd fight back, Coach, she said. I turned, looked her in the eyes. She looked tired, not in the way you do after a long day, but in the way a person looks when the lies they lived in finally collapse. I gave you peace, I said quietly. You came for war. That was your mistake. She didn't reply. She just looked down, then walked away. And just like that, the final thread between us snapped. About 6 months after the court case, I got lunch with an old mutual friend, Kevin. We hadn't spoken much since I disappeared. I figured he'd taken her side, or maybe just stayed out of it. But over burgers and black coffee, he finally brought her up. He said, not looking up from his fries, Claire, she's not doing great. I didn't respond right away. She sold the old place, that he continued, moved into a smaller apartment on the edge of the city, said the silence in the house drove her nuts. I looked out the window, quiet. Kevin went on slowly, and she is different now. Quieter, she doesn't really hang out with the old crowd. Heard she stopped drinking, goes to therapy every week. She doesn't talk much about what happened, but when she does, it's always about you. I raised an eyebrow, and she says she killed the best thing that ever happened to her, Kevin said. Says you were the only man who ever made her feel safe. Said she didn't realize what real love was until it was already gone. I took a sip of water, swallowed hard. She ever tried dating again? I asked. Kevin nodded. Once or twice, didn't last. She told someone at party that she's not sure she deserves love anymore. That maybe she burned that bridge for good. For a moment, I didn't know what to feel. Pity, closure? I guess it was both. I looked at Kevin and said, I hope she finds peace someday. I really do, because the truth is, I don't hate her. I don't even wish her pain. But we're not the same people anymore. I moved forward, not to forget her, but to reclaim the part of me she almost destroyed. And now I sleep peacefully, not because I found someone new, but because I found me, and she lives with the memory of man who gave her everything, and then vanished without word, not out of cruelty, but because sometimes leaving is the loudest way to say, you don't get to break me twice.